Howdy. The other day I was browsing through Twitter when I came across an interesting account. It was called happyhome_RBLX or something like that. There were many games out there, some once popular, some always obscure, but they were always vintage in nature. One of the games I ended up seeing was a game called Sleepy. I was excited because that was my backdrop for quite a handful of my videos. Now this Sleepy game is what I'd call a non-functional game. It is basically a game you don't actually play. There's no objective, no in-depth mechanics to really gnaw on, and not much to do other than take in the scenery of the place you're visiting. In this video, I'll detail to you various games that fall within the more casual realm of Roblox places. Showcases are basically just flexes of building ability. They're also the ones that most decisively classify as non-functional. There's not much to say about what specifically occurs in the game. You load in, hope your PC doesn't explode if the showcase is resource intensive, and look around and take in the sight. There's a lack of social features or doodads available, so many games don't retain that many players, despite critical acclaim. There's a lot of showcases out there. A lot of vintage games were just, look at this build, and that was it. There's a lot of older stuff that's really interesting to see. You got the aforementioned Sleepy by with a retro-looking bedroom. This pirate ship was the most complex thing in 2006. Poseidon's Rock was last updated close to 10 years ago. And this was cutting edge graphics at the time. Nowadays, this would just be like a standard Roblox lobby for a game that isn't a profit-maxing, baby extortion simulator. It's not just historical Roblox monuments too. There's a lot of modern-day developers who create absolute beauties of showcases. Shiguto, I hope I said that right, is a collective of Shiguto is a collective of developers and builders who collaborate to produce exemplary builds. The neon market is chef's kiss. Dutches, there's no vowel there. Right. Is a great example and a member of this collective. You may know them for their Central Japan showcase, but I fancy the rest of their catalog as well. I really like when Dutches delves into more of a rundown, urban, crowded type of build. Another member of Shiguto is Zol, who is mostly known for the PC Explorer showcase, Shanyu. He makes a lot of graphically impressive games, but they have too much functionality and objectives to qualify as a non-functional game. The games he makes mostly fall within horror.
Ai, a carinha dele, mano. A carinha dele.
Speaking of, uncompleted horror games are quite the showcase if you want to get technical. If you boil down Roblox horror games, a lot of them are just cinematic walking simulators with random scares, chase sequences, and puzzles strewn about. Maybe there's a good story if you look hard enough. Roses was popular for its graphics, even though it wasn't finished, and because of that, it kinda sucked as a horror game. It made for an interesting showcase though. Without any story or any meaningful scares or really anything, you're kinda just there to walk and notice the spooky environment and how put together everything is. Toshiko is another unfinished horror game that looks really good but is incomplete, although it's only a demo and not a real release. To wrap it up, the final showcase I want to mention specifically is Lando 64000. You might know him most from his hide-and-seek game. His builds were solid at the time, but not otherworldly. The real attraction to the place was the creativity of his builds and the way they do little world building. That's through the execution of the presentation and Easter eggs. There's so many instances of niche Easter eggs, little secrets, and solid builds that it's fun just exploring around these places. And some of them are pretty in their own old-fashioned way. Vibe games are a little less dependent on building ability or technological advancement. They're more functional and they lean on the MMO aspect of Roblox quite a bit. There's lots of tools and doodads and gimmicks and what have you to keep you interested and in the game as a social hangout of sorts. The building aspect of these games is optional as they function more of a backdrop more than anything. Poses are the most common way of telling you're playing a vibe game. It's weird. There's a lot of games where you can just post up and look hard. The Old Diner is a game where the build is nice, and there's quite a bit of posing variety in the seats. I literally spent hours in this game chilling with the boys, just looking hard. The aptly named Vibe Place Original is one whose build isn't really much to look at, but it's got the poses. Bathroom Simulator also doesn't have much to look at and admire when it comes to the construction, but it's got a nice sense of humor and the toilets to sit on, ergo poses, ergo vibe game. Back to School is another one of these vibe games. The main selling point used to be the classroom with all the seating and posing variety, mainly because there wasn't much outside of the classroom, but now it's developed into its own little town with a lot of stuff to see and explore. Exploration is another thing that vibe games really like to bank off of. The dreamcore, weirdcore places are great examples. Lots of features to mess around with, quite an emphasis on the social aspect, and there's lots of places to explore. I love the creativity associated with these types of games, and it's a good time killer when your friends don't got much to do. It really is a vibe game. Volkstra, is that... Why do they all have weird names? It's pissing me off. No, I'm just kidding. Volkstra had a game about cars and driving around the city. There were lots of cool little Easter eggs, little world-building tidbits like Lando's stuff. A couple years ago, I tried bugging him on his socials because he used a really catchy song in the game, and I wanted to know what it was, but it was kind of Slough City. He never responded. Also, he took the game down, so rip. Write a Letter's premise sells you on the note technology, but for me, I stayed because of the exploratory aspect of the game. There's also poses, and there's also a weird community. The most popular series on my channel, Roblox's Darkest Industry, I added some cinematic flair, in quotes, to enhance the viewing experience. It was my avatar in a dark room while it slowly zoomed in on me. The special room was in Write a Letter, and both times I featured it, I've gotten comments telling me that the game was fucking gross, which is a damn shame. I really like it. But the elephant in the room is that vibe games attract weird communities. A lot of very, romantical, to put it lightly, and sometimes toxic community. That's what makes vibe games the bad. Although I like the poses, I really like the exploration, and sometimes the building capabilities if they decide to, flex it. There's just an influx of VR chat, Second Life, ERP adjacent weirdos that populate the place. Also, in my research for the first Darkest Industry video, and glancing upon the ERP community, there's actually a lot of vibe games in their favorites. So not only is it like a weird place where weird stuff happens, it's also a place where, I assume, ERPers weed out those curious enough to deviate into degeneracy. It's just a weird community, all things considered. Vibe games are an unfortunate victim of weird communities, although some of these places ask for it more than others. There is a type of game that actively panders towards these weirdos and sex pests within Roblox. Would you like to do sus RP, which is suspense to lovers sus? No. There are two types of sus games. One is the RR63 faux condo games, the ones that pretended to be gateways to condos or market themselves with R63 branding. I talked about this in the first Darkest Industry video. Those aren't the games we'll be talking about because one, they have a function, and that function is stealing your money. And two, they fucking suck and aren't pertinent to the rest of the non-functional games we've talked about. The games I'm talking about are the vibe games with a bit more suggestive branding. Now, there's actually not a lot of vibe games with the sus branding permeating. A lot of them clung onto just normal vibe games because sus games carry a negative connotation. The sussy hangout is a very strange place. As soon as I joined, there were lots of solicitors and ERPers trying to catch any foolhardy individuals into partaking in their devilish acts. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, I'm back. I'm still loading in. So, I haven't fully grasped this place, but look at this. Look at these. Look at this shit. ABC to do sus boys. Girls. I also swear that this friggin' Vibe game used to have sus branding. They changed it, but the community there is still weird and very, very inappropriate. Although to give this game some credit, there's at least semblance of combating these weirdos from plaguing their games, but it's not perfect. The sus branding of Vibe places is kinda dead, which is a good thing. It was dangerously close to replicating the Meep City 6 parties and proto-condos of the 2016 era, with the added detriment of ERPers of modern times perusing around and soliciting people for inappropriate things. Anyways. Showcases, Vibe games, and to an extent, sus games are really good for YouTubers. They're a gold mine for people who do machinimas. Showcases, since they focus on the building foremost, and the multiplayer aspect barely at all, it's easy to get a server because a lot of the games are empty. Also, showcases specifically are really good because there's not as much GUIs plaguing the screen, although some Vibe games have the option of hiding GUIs. I use a lot of Vibe games and showcases as scenes and locations for my videos. There are other machinima YouTubers that also follow this practice. My mind goes to Sword Stealer specifically. Speaking of YouTubers, some of these bastards are so oozing with talent, they decide to make their own showcase for their own videos. Ventuist is a notable example. His loft is a fucking beautiful aesthetic showcase, and he uses it quite a bit as a backdrop for his videos. It's such a nice looking place, and he also finds time to be a solid YouTuber on top of that, so hats off to you, dude. Sus games, even though they're weird and pretty concerning as a game type, make for pretty cheap and easy videos. I've seen a lot of people around my, YouTube size have their most popular video be about playing and exploring sus games. Whoa, look how weird this sussy thing is, guys. Whoa. And boom, easily several thousand views, even more if you're a bigger league YouTuber. Here's a showcase of some other games I'll recommend to you that I didn't mention or show off within the video that I really like. A lot of the showcases on my favorites got privatized for some reason, so I'm only really showing you the ones available to play. Go check them out, some really good stuff over here. And that was Vibe games, or non-functional games. I'm not sure what I'm going to call this video. Do you like showcase and or Vibe games? Which ones are your favorites? Leave them in the comments below. I'll probably check them out sooner or later, because I really like this type of game. I really like looking at it. I really like filming it for videos. Anyways, I've been Healer, and thank you for watching. Bye-bye.